Today we're going to talk about 13 weird ways that crochet has changed my life. And by weird, I mean those unexpected and quirky crochet things that have literally changed me as a person. Hi, I'm Elise from the blog LePetitSansCrochet.com. And for me, crocheting has been more than just a hobby. It's been a life-changing experience that has brought me peace, joy, and a sense of accomplishment. And I know that it's had an impact on many of you as well because you tell me in the comment section. I get DMs on Instagram, and it's wonderful to see all of the positive impacts that crochet has on people everywhere. I first discovered crochet when I was going through a very difficult time in my life. I was struggling with anxiety that stemmed from my son's very serious health condition. And those negative feelings set me searching for ways to calm my mind in the midst of doctor's appointments and hospital stays. One dark and lonely night, I scrolled on Pinterest, determined to find a hobby, and there it was, a beautiful crocheted blanket, and I was hooked from that day forward. You can find more details about my crochet journey in other videos that I've made, but today I really want to focus on 13 weird ways that crochet has literally changed my life. We're going to start with those small little weird things that crochet changes about a person, and then we're going to end with the craziest, most unexpected ways that crocheting has changed me as a person. The first weird way that crochet has changed me is when I am out shopping. But now I can't help but notice items on the shelves and think, I could crochet that. Recently I was in Target and I saw these cute little pom-pom headbands and I thought those would be so simple to make. I also found a little pom-pom garland and a mini birthday crochet hat, and I remembered that I already have a free pattern for that. These are the little mini birthday hats, and you can find the free pattern on my blog, but you'll also find the tutorial here on YouTube as well. So shopping now can be sort of an inspirational experience where I can get great ideas for all different kinds of projects that I can make at home. But this phenomenon definitely leads me to the second weird way that crochet has changed my life. When I'm out shopping and I find something that I think that I could definitely make at home, what I never take into account is how much it's going to actually cost me to make this item at home than it would be to just buy it in the store. I will spend $50 crocheting something that I could buy at the store for about $2.99. Raise your hand if that's ever happened to you. And leave a comment letting me know, yep, I've done that before. The third weird way that crocheting has changed me is that I get triggered by one phrase. Let me set up this scenario for you. You're out in public, you are crocheting something beautiful, and a person comes up to you and they ask, "Hey, what are you knitting?" And I'll feel a slight rise in my cheeks and a tad bit of annoyance, and I calmly say, "Oh, I'm crocheting blah, blah, blah." Now, I'm not really upset that people don't know the correct terminology, but I do feel weirdly defensive for crochet. I feel like I'm sticking up for an old friend who isn't being recognized for their greatness. Crocheting is such an amazing hobby, but I do think it gets overlooked by its more well-known cousin, knitting. The next weird way that crocheting has changed me is that I now look at crocheting more like a sport than just a hobby. Now, hear me out. I know this may sound bizarre, but there are some similarities between crocheting and a sport. Sports include people who perform specific skills with their physical bodies. And there's an element of risk because people can become injured participating in that sport. Sounds a bit like crocheting, doesn't it? Who knew that you could actually have real injuries from crocheting? I didn't until I actually was diagnosed with tendinitis by an orthopedic doctor. I ended up having to get steroid shots and also went to physical therapy to help me heal from this repetitive motion injury. And all of that happened because I just didn't want to put down my hook and all that gorgeous yarn. When we're crocheting, we are actually doing repetitive motions that can cause real injuries to our muscles, tendons, and joints. That is one weird way that crocheting has actually changed my life. I can't just crochet anytime I want for as long as I want. I have to listen to my body and watch out for signs of injury, just like a real athlete. The The next weird way that crochet has changed me is how I make friends. I find that making friends as an adult is super hard, and I think as a crocheter, it's even harder for me to connect with other people who aren't crafters. When I meet somebody new and they ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" I take a deep gulp and I try to make this situation sound not so weird. I crochet toys in my basement. That doesn't really make people want to talk to you. The other weird way that crochet has changed me is when I go on vacation. Before, I could just pack up my clothes and my personal belongings and head out the door. Now I actually have to leave room in my suitcase for my yarn and my notions. I've even been known to take an entirely separate suitcase just for my crafting supplies. And when we've gone places that are especially interesting, I've been known to bring some amigurumi toys to photograph. Because I love taking photos of my toys in interesting locations, and I actually brought one little pig to Disney World with me. And I think this photo turned out really cute. Another way that crochet has changed me is that my evenings are set aside for crocheting. At night, I sit in my comfy chair and surround myself with my yarn and my hook. It is my favorite way to spend a quiet evening. And if I don't get that time in the evenings, I feel out of sorts. But this leads me to the next weird way that crochet has changed my life. I have no idea what people look like on TV. And because I crochet mostly in the evenings, I have no idea what these characters actually look like. I recognize their voices, but if I had to pick them out in a police lineup, I would have no clue. Another way that crochet has changed me is that my house is actually messier. Before I became an avid crocheter, I definitely had a neater and tidier house. My floors were vacuumed, my toilets were scrubbed, and my surfaces were dusted. But these days, I'd rather grab my yarn and my hook, and my house being messy just isn't as much of a priority anymore. Another weird way that crochet has changed my life is now I need an entire room for all my crafting supplies. I've never been great at keeping up with my laundry, but at least I had a dedicated space just for washing and drying the clothes. Nowadays, this is primarily a craft room with my washing machine and my dryer over in the corner. But before becoming totally addicted to crocheting, I could have never imagined needing an entire room for all of my crafting supplies. And if I'm honest, I really wish this room were bigger. And this is something that I never ever could have imagined happening to me. One of the biggest and most unexpected ways that crochet has changed my life is bettering my mental health. I've talked about it many times, but I came to crocheting during a very difficult time in my life. My son's health was really bad and I was a big, hot, anxious mess. I knew that I needed something that would keep my hands busy so that my mind could relax and I could take better care of him. I never could have imagined all the positive effects that crocheting would have on my life, and I didn't know all about the scientific research that backed that up. Life is hard, and crocheting helps me to get through those difficult times. And if you're interested in learning more about the positive effects from crocheting on your mental health, make sure to click the link that I will leave in the description box below. Another weird way that crocheting has changed my life is the way I actually see myself. When I started crocheting, I promised myself that I wasn't going to fall back into my old patterns on giving up when things got hard. For my entire life, I would quit anything when it became challenging. If I wasn't good at something the very first time, I thought it wasn't for me and I would give up. But back in 2016, I was really in a desperate situation and I was willing to do whatever it took to be able to have a hobby that I could enjoy at home or on the go. And this literally changed everything for me. I know it sounds dramatic, but crocheting has changed the way I see myself because I learned that I could stick with something and push through when things got hard. And I started to do that in other areas of my life, and I never would have done that if I hadn't learned that from crochet. Now, when I want to learn something new, I know that I can do it. I just take all of those skills that I learned with crocheting and apply them to anything that I want to do in life. It took me 42 years to figure this out, but I'm so glad that I learned that the only limits I have are the ones that I place on myself. The biggest and weirdest way that crocheting has changed my life is that I started a crochet-based business. In all my years, I have never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've never dreamed of starting my own business, and I never wanted to be my own boss. But once I began crocheting, I knew pretty quickly that I wanted this to be something more. I wanted it to be the way I spent my days. And I wanted to share all of those amazing benefits that crocheting was giving me to others. I believe that crocheting makes the world a better place, and I wanted to share that message with anybody who would listen to me. Now, crocheting not only helps me cope with the stresses of daily life, but it actually provides an income for our family. I could never have dreamed that crocheting would be not just a hobby, but my job. It's totally weird and wonderful all at the same time. I would love to know how crocheting has changed your life. Leave that in the comment section below, and I hope you all stay safe out there and happy stitching.